What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we're just about 2.5 weeks out from The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom releasing, and there seems to be a lot of hype online around this title, and now it looks like we have a bunch of information coming our way, and this comes from something that got out there a bit early, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony and a big-time sequel that's now been confirmed, as well as another game to go alongside of that, this coming from a bit of a shakeup at PlayStation Studios. And we'll also be going over another showcase to look forward to this summer, but this one might be a bit harder to predict. Guys, if you enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Armored Core 6. A lot of excitement when this was announced last year during the Game Awards, and now it appears we're just kind of waiting to find out when it's going to release, as we are expecting it for 2023. But apparently, we just have the release date kind of put out there, and this we can see posted up over on Insider Gaming. Says, sources, Armored Core 6 to release August 2023. And I saw, okay, so we have the month. No, Tom Henderson just has the release day for it. He says, Insider Gaming sources have revealed that Armored Core 6 will release in August, specifically on August 25th. Now, he does go on to talk a bit about the idea of, maybe they'll show the release date at Summer Game Fest, right, on June 8th, but now he's kind of anticipating it to happen any time now. And hard to say where he got this information from. I'm not going to press him on that release, but I mean, it's exciting to hear that we might not even have to wait until June 8th to get that official release date. And I think August, that makes a lot of sense for Armored Core 6. Why not throw it in there before all the mayhem breaks out for the holiday season, which generally starts to really pick up as we get into September. But I'd rather have it sooner rather than later, I will say that, because I am very excited for Armored Core 6, and now I'm just kind of on the lookout, waiting for a trailer or some sort of press release to drop giving us that date. Also, we've talked from time to time about these decompilation projects, with some of the more popular ones being from the Nintendo 64, like Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, it looks like we have another one, which we can see this post up over on Twitter. This is from Ethan, who says, I'm extremely happy to announce that after 3+ years of working on a decompilation project for Paper Mario, we have reached 100% completion for the US version of the game. Every compiled function has been matched. So mentioned there's still other things to do here to really get it, I guess, to the finish line complete all the way around. But when you see something like this where they have reached 100% in terms of having the functions matched across the board, it's great news if you're someone who was hoping that we would see quality of life improvements to it, maybe ports even, as we saw this with Mario 64. Remember, there was ray tracing for Super Mario 64, and a lot of graphical options, features, frame rate things, all kinds of stuff happens when you basically reverse engineer and create a whole thing of source code for people to go to and then be able to port and move around. So it's exciting stuff there to see this community continue to grow, as there are other projects still in the works, notably Perfect Dark. That could be a really interesting one to see happen. But yeah, it looks like Paper Mario being the next big decompilation project to wrap up. Oh, and with Dead Island 2 releasing last week, we actually got some sales information for it. And this is because the game is doing pretty well. Like, we can see this posted up by Gamatsu, where they say Dead Island 2 sales top 1 million in the first 3 days. If you go back to the original Dead Island game, and it was a while ago now, I think about it, back in the 360 days, that took about a week to get to 1 million units sold. So yeah, Dead Island 2 is off to a pretty good start. They also shared a bunch of other information, millions and millions of zombies being chopped up and all these different things. So just some of those fun statistics that these companies like to throw out there. But Dead Island 2, I'm having fun with it. It's not this incredible Game of the Year nominee, nothing like that, but not every game has to be that. This, to me, is just kind of dumb fun. Turn your brain off and go around smashing a bunch of zombies with, for me, a golf club that's electrified. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, again, out May 12th, and people are pretty excited for this, as you would expect with the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, some people looking at as the best game ever made. But as we've gotten closer and closer to release, we have at least been getting some more information, especially from that final trailer. And now it appears we will see previews start to roll out this week. In fact, it's actually happening a bit sooner maybe than people were anticipating, because we're now looking towards tomorrow morning for this stuff to start hitting the internet. And this originally appeared on Reddit, and you can see where it is now with the post just being completely deleted. It says it was deleted by the person who originally posted it. So the reason I think they deleted it is because they did share the embargo time, like down to the exact hour, which that could be a little dicey there. But Tears of the Kingdom previews will come out on Wednesday, April 26th, and you're basically looking for a Wednesday morning for those to go live. And I'm curious exactly what they have in terms of their preview scope, but we can also see Tom Henderson chiming in here saying, can confirm this. And yeah, there were preview events that we'll say happened in the last 7 or 8 days. We'll go with that one. But I was more curious how long from when the preview event was to when it would come out with the previews being written up. And that does make me wonder about what kind of scope again they have for it, because most likely they are in a very controlled demo area, and I assume it's mostly there to just show off some of the features like Ultra Hand, maybe Ascend, those sorts of things. Not necessarily, hey, we're going to throw you in the entire open world and you just run a direction for an hour and let us know what you find. They want them to hone in on specific things for these preview write-ups. And while there will still be opinions and thoughts around what they are seeing, it's not going to give you an idea necessarily of the entire scope of the game. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if they just have them on a single sky island, and that's all they really do. Kind of like running around in the Great Plateau area in Breath of the Wild. But still, I think it'll be interesting to hear about how things with the Ultra Hand, how that controls, and what their experiences are attaching these different items together, and maybe even what they can create on the fly. So those will be some very interesting impressions to look forward to there. And the other thing, Nintendo did officially release that trailer that leaked out in an unfinished state that showed us like the Flame Gliok and all of those things. And you can see some of that here, since, yes, we can now show the trailer because Nintendo's officially released it. But it was funny because it's called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. You can do what? With a question mark and an exclamation point. I think Nintendo's been watching too many YouTubers for this one, but it shows some smaller snippets of gameplay, as well as that really what appears to be an underground area, as some of the coordinates are negative on the Z-axis. So a lot of questions about how much exploration there will be in this game, and that not only includes the sky, but also the underground area. But keep an eye out Wednesday morning. Should see some more information just start to really pop up online, and we'll be covering that the following day in Newswave, because I am genuinely curious what some of these previews are going to be saying. Next up, let's talk about Sony and a couple of games that they have now confirmed for what's really grown into this massive intellectual property for them, at least to me. I asked a poll question trying to place where this intellectual property was, kind of on the ladder of Sony games, and we'll look at that later on in the show. But first, let's head over here to Guerrilla Games, as they did have this posted up on their website that's just titled "A Message from Guerrilla Studio Management." After almost an incredible 20 years at Guerrilla, our studio director and executive producer Angie Smets is starting a new role as head of development strategy at PlayStation Studios. So I guess in a sense working their way up the ladder there for PlayStation Studios, which is interesting because at Guerrilla, Herman Holst went from there to like a prominent role within PlayStation Studios, right? Now you see Angie Smets moving up the ladder there, but we can see this quote: "These past 2 decades at Guerrilla have been an absolute dream. I feel privileged to have worked alongside some of the smartest and coolest people in the industry. I'm so grateful for everything I've learned alongside all the other Guerrillas. We have accomplished so much as a team, and I'm incredibly proud of all the games we've shipped together." Now, they do go on to talk really a bit about what they're working on right now, where they say, in terms of new structure, Guerrilla is happy to announce that our management team now consists of Joel Eschler, the studio director and production director, and Hella Schmidt, who's the studio director and general manager, alongside Jan Bart van Beek, who's the studio director and art director. They say we have full confidence in our new leadership as they steer Guerrilla towards a bright future, expanding the world of Horizon with Aloy's next adventure and our exciting online project. Michael Van Der Loo, who's technical director, will be focusing on the future technology and strategy for the Decima engine. Okay, so a lot to take away from that final paragraph, really. One, yeah, there's going to be a sequel to Horizon Forbidden West. Anyone who's played through the game knows that this is at least a trilogy, all right? The other thing, though, the online game, we've seen that in job listings. We've kind of seen it mentioned in passing here and there, but yeah, there's apparently going to be a Horizon live service multiplayer game. And I mean, it makes sense, I guess. See, that's the thing. I look at Horizon now, especially after the sales of Horizon Zero Dawn topping 20 million, as a big franchise for Sony. But when this announcement happened and it was like, oh yeah, Guerrilla's making another game in the Horizon series to, well, again, what I think kind of bookend a trilogy here, I did see some people who were kind of disappointed. I don't know if they were hoping Guerrilla would show up and say, hey, we're working on a new Killzone game, which that'd be kind of cool. I would be all right with that. I do think Sony could use a big time online shooter like that, even as first person. I think third person is going to be mostly handled by what we're going to get from Last of Us Factions, that sort of multiplayer. But I wouldn't mind either a Killzone. Maybe we get something Resistance. Maybe they take SOCOM and make that first person, which I'm sure would not at all annoy that fan base. But yes, we have another game in Horizon, the Horizon series coming up, as well as a multiplayer game that, from my understanding, is going to be similar to Monster Hunter. At least that's kind of the word going around right now. Now, the last part seems to talk about the development of the Decima engine, which has become very, very important to Sony. We've even seen them take the Decima engine and use it on PC, and that seems to be working pretty well. Obviously, we've seen Hideo Kojima use it with great effect for something like Death Stranding, and I assume to see Death Stranding 2. So them continue to work on the Decima engine, improve it, whether it's through compatibility with other games and genres, or just overall graphical effect and ability for what it can do in games, is interesting, especially as we're now going to be by the end of this year, 3 years into the PS5 generation. I will say, Horizon Burning Shores, if you play this expansion, right, this DLC, it is graphically impressive. And the reason it surprised me a bit, and I made a tweet that people were confused why I was kind of surprised, I had played Forbidden West in performance mode. If you played that game when it first came out in performance mode, shimmering all over the place. There were some updates to try to fix it up a bit, but this DLC seems like leagues above what I was playing there with Forbidden West in terms of visual clarity. So if they can do that with a game that originally started development really on the PS4, what can they do when the Decima engine is fully moved to the PS5, focusing directly on one platform like this? That's what I'm really excited to find out, and it seems like that's going to be what the third game in the Horizon series is. I will say, though, when we get to that point and we conclude the story, I wouldn't mind seeing Guerrilla move on to something new or revive something old like a Killzone, but that's what we have to look forward to from them. A multiplayer Horizon, and then what I hope to be final game in the trilogy for the Horizon single-player series. Next up, let's talk about another showcase we have to look forward to this summer. This one coming from THQ Nordic, which they did a showcase last August, so this just appears to continue that trend, and maybe it'll become a yearly thing. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if it did, mostly because THQ Nordic, Embracer, they have a lot of studios they can tap to kind of build out one of these showcases every single year. But we can see this posted up on Twitter from THQ Nordic saying another year, another lineup. Be sure to save the date for our THQ Nordic Digital Showcase live on August 11th, 2023. This year's showcase will not only include world premiere announcements, but also updates and reveals for previously announced games. In fact, over on their website, they had a press release, and they did name drop a couple of titles. They said, without giving away too much, if you want to learn more about some of our titles like Alone in the Dark, Outcast 2, and Trine 5, we highly recommend you tune in and check out the showcase. So I have seen some people in the comments, some Trine fans, so there you go. You'll want to check that one out. But I am curious about Alone in the Dark. That might be an interesting one to see how that turns out. And the thing with this, though, is I see people go, well, what about Time Splitters? And that's kind of the issue. with the overall Embracer Group family, because there are so many publishers and studios who are under Embracer, they're not necessarily crossing over, but you still think of THQ Nordic as having time splitters. But that's, if you look at like their web of studios, that's on the opposite side. That's with like Deep Silver. That wouldn't actually be THQ Nordic. They've had to reply to people in the past over that. And that's why it's so hard to really predict this kind of a showcase. But I am curious because they do tend to, I would say, create games that do feel like the PS2, Xbox, GameCube generation. I say that in a positive way, but that's sort of the way I think of some of these THQ Nordic games. And one of the reasons I'll be checking this one out, August 11th, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see what they have then. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It is out Friday, so just couple of days from now, and we did get word through the official account that it will be available at midnight Eastern time. So it's not gonna be that weird thing where sometimes games launch the next day, like the day it comes out, but you have to wait till 9 a.m. Pacific time for some reason. No, this is launching as soon as the clock strikes like midnight on the East Coast, moving to Friday. So good stuff there for anyone who is working to preload this game, which is live today because it is 150 gigabytes, and we're still waiting to see what's going on with that physical copy, how much is on the disc, how much you have to download, and if it's really worth buying then. Like if it's just a disc with 70 megabytes on it for a launcher and you gotta download everything anyway, kind of hard to recommend that one. But I did want to bring this up here, which this we can see posted by PlayStation Game Size. Says the Star Wars Jedi Survivor review embargo lifts on April 26th. That's at 8 a.m. Pacific time. I'm really interested to see what the review scores are going to be for this one, because I didn't even think too much about it, but the review scores for Fallen Order were lower than I remember. They're like the low 8, it's like 81. Like, wow, that game felt better than an 81. And I'm kind of looking at this, and my prediction's probably like 86 or 87. But let me know what your predictions are for this one. The reason I'm going with like 86 or an 87 is because the game has leaked out, and the spoilers are going around now, as someone has basically confirmed through way of screenshots, some talks about the plot and early game details. It does look like we have one of those copies out in the wild now, and someone is just mainlining the game. They've been able to confirm how long the game takes, some cameos in the game, which if you remember with the Fallen Order, if you finish that, you don't really want to have that cameo spoiled for you. So look out for spoilers online because they do appear to be floating around. The one good thing though that I noticed is that there is a performance mode, and it's 1440p 60 frames per second, at least is kind of the word going around. So good to hear we will have that 60 frames per second mode without having to drop all the way down to like 1080p or something. But I'm ready. We're not too far off, just a couple of days. So be wary of spoilers, and let me know what your best guess is for that Metacritic score down below in the comments. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, out of Sony's current PS5 lineup, which of these games is your favorite? God of War Ragnarok, I mean, clear favorite here, 47%. The thing I was a little surprised about though, is Horizon Forbidden West was only 2% away from being in last place, below Returnal. And that's kind of surprising to me. I thought Horizon Forbidden West would have been a bit higher. Okay, probably behind Spider-Man, because it's Spider-Man, right? It's a big-time intellectual property in general. But being behind Ratchet & Clank, like Horizon Forbidden West is a good game. It's actually a really good game. Visually speaking, it's very impressive, especially now with Burning Shores. I don't know, is it the controls with the combat? Is it the character Aloy? I'm trying to figure out what about this game is really turning people off from it, because the thing that I could look at and say, all right, maybe that's it. The combat, it feels like they're just trying to do a little too much. Like there's a lot you can do, a lot of options, but it almost feels overwhelming, and sometimes the controls can kind of stumble over themselves because of it. But let me know what's going on there with Horizon Forbidden West, specifically why it wouldn't be one of your favorite PS5 games. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from James, says, if you think people were upset with Mario's voice, imagine a reaction to Link's. All right, so if they do a movie with The Legend of Zelda, people have to realize it's going to be hard to make it without Link saying anything. And that's the biggest thing, is Link is supposed to be, or at least from what we see in the games, doesn't really say much, basically mute. So if you bring him up to the big screen, you're going to have someone like Chris Pratt voice him, mostly because having a Hollywood actor like that, or actress, whoever, you want to have them up there for the namesake, and who are you going to match up with Link? Because you're not going to go a full 90 minutes with Link saying nothing. So what would be the strategy there? How would you navigate that with Link in a movie where you would expect your main character to say something? And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whereas The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom previews upcoming here actually tomorrow. What are you hoping to see from them? And then Horizon, looks like we're getting a couple of new games, online multiplayer, and then we're also getting that third game in what I think might be a trilogy. Were you happy to hear that, or were you thinking that Guerrilla Games might move on to do something else? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.